You are free, and all your possessions are safe under my protection.
Rise up. Chronoscripts is your gateway to the forgotten, mysterious, and hidden corners of history.
Hear me now. For too long have we suffered. No more! We rise up and take back our destiny.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
One of the greatest empires in history, Rome, was now just a memory. All that remained was the final fortress of that memory, Constantinople, the jewel of the world, the impregnable city where 3 continents met. For over 1,000 years, 23 armies had tried to breach these walls, and all had failed. But now its walls were tired, and its empire exhausted. In the east, a young, dynamic new power was rising, fueled by unshakable faith, the Ottoman Empire. And at its head was a ruler whose mind and faith were sharper than his sword, Sultan Mehmed II. He was not merely a conqueror, but an engineer, a strategist, and a visionary beyond his age. He had sworn to fulfill the prophecy of his prophet, and now the time for that prophecy had come. His army trusted his genius and his justice completely. Intellect is always superior to brute force. Sultan Mehmed knew he would bring down the walls not with force, but with genius. He gathered the greatest engineers of the age and commissioned a weapon the world had never seen, the colossal cannons, each one a machine of war, forged from faith and science. But his brilliance wasn't limited to this. To cut off any naval aid to the city, he built the Rumelian fortress at the narrowest point of the Bosphorus in an unbelievable 4 months. This wasn't just a fortress. It was a monument to Ottoman determination and engineering skill. The circle around Constantinople was now closing. April 1453, thousands of soldiers awaited the moment of destiny before the walls, and the first shot that would change the course of history was ready to be fired. The sound of doom. When the great cannons fired, the 1,000-year-old walls of Constantinople trembled as never before. Each shot battered not just stone and mortar, but the will of the defenders. However, the brave Emperor Constantine and his people mounted an incredible defense, working through the night to repair the breaches. The siege was turning into a battle of attrition. The city's naval defense seemed secure. A massive iron chain was stretched across the mouth of the Golden Horn, keeping the Ottoman fleet out. Without breaking this blockade, an attack on the city's weaker sea walls was impossible. Weeks passed. Cannons roared. Miners dug tunnels, but a decisive breakthrough seemed out of reach. At the moment when hope began to fade, Sultan Mehmed's genius ignited once more. If his ships could not sail into the Golden Horn, then they would travel across land. It was a plan so audacious, so unbelievable, that it bordered on madness. But for Mehmed, it was a matter of faith and logistics. Under the cover of darkness, his army of soldiers and engineers worked as one. They cleared a path of several miles, laid down a roadway of greased logs, and began to do the impossible. One by one, they hauled 70 warships out of the Bosphorus, over a 200-foot hill, and down into the protected waters of the Golden Horn. The Genoese colony of Galata, meant to be neutral, watched in stunned silence. By morning, the Byzantines awoke to a nightmare. An entire enemy fleet had appeared in their safe harbor overnight. It was a masterstroke of strategy and psychological warfare. For the defenders of Constantinople, the impossible had happened. Hope was beginning to die. The strategic advantage was now absolute. With the Ottoman fleet in the Golden Horn, the city's sea walls, once its sanctuary, were now a vulnerable front line. The Byzantine defenders, already exhausted, were forced to spread their forces even thinner. The pressure was relentless, the circle complete. After weeks of bombardment and skirmishes, Sultan Mehmed knew the time was right. He rode before his men, not just as their sultan, but as their brother in arms. He spoke of the glory, the honor, and the divine promise. His words were a fire that ignited their souls. This was not a battle for gold or land, but for a sacred purpose. Together they prayed as one body, their faith a force more powerful than any cannon. As the night of May 28th fell, a silence descended, followed by the deafening roar of war drums. The final assault was about to begin. The assault came in waves, a calculated strategy to grind down the defenders. First, the irregulars, absorbing the enemy's initial fury and resources. They fought with passion, paving the way for the core of the army. Then came the second wave, the heavily armored Anatolian regiments, attacking with tactical precision. Above the din of battle, the Ottoman cannons never ceased, methodically turning sections of the legendary walls to rubble. Emperor Constantine, the last Roman emperor, fought with the heart of a lion, a symbol of defiance against impossible odds. But Mehmed's strategy was designed to outlast even the strongest courage. He held his ultimate weapon in reserve, the Janissaries. And as a new gaping wound was torn open in the wall, the Sultan unleashed them. Their advance was disciplined, inexorable. The final decisive blow. This was the moment the battle would be won or lost. The Janissaries, the Sultan's elite, moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. They were not just soldiers, they were the embodiment of discipline and faith. They crashed into the breach, and the final, most brutal phase of the battle began. In the heart of the fight, a warrior of legendary strength, Ulubatlı Hasan, achieved the impossible. He fought his way to the top of the wall and planted the Ottoman banner, a symbol of victory that electrified the entire army. Seeing the flag, the last Roman emperor, Constantine, knew the end had come. Like a true soldier, he plunged into the thick of the battle, embracing his fate. At that very moment, another gate was breached, and the trickle of invaders became an unstoppable flood. The ancient defenses had failed. The army of the Sultan was now inside the city. For the citizens of Constantinople, this was the moment they had feared for generations. Panic spread through the winding streets as thousands sought refuge in what they believed was the safest place on earth, the Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom. They barred the doors, praying for a miracle. Outside, the sounds of battle began to fade. While chaos was inevitable in the fall of any city, Sultan Mehmed's commands were clear. His elite Janissaries moved to establish order, protecting the people from wanton destruction. This was not to be a barbaric sacking, but the claiming of a new capital. As the church bells fell silent, 1,000 years of Roman history drew its final breath. The conqueror had arrived, but he did not come with the fire and fury the people expected. Sultan Mehmed rode through the city, his gaze taking in the splendor of his new capital. He saw not only a prize of war, but the heart of his future empire, a jewel to be polished, not shattered. As he approached the Hagia Sophia, the last sanctuary of a defeated people, he did something unexpected. He dismounted his horse. He would not enter this holy place as a conqueror on horseback, but as a humble servant of God. As the massive doors creaked open, the two worlds collided, the fearful last citizens of Byzantium and the young Sultan who now held their destiny in his hands. Silence fell upon the great church. Mehmed walked under the magnificent dome, his mind captivated by its beauty and the faith that had built it. He saw one of his soldiers trying to deface the marble floor, and his justice was swift and clear. "I have given you the captives and the treasures," he declared, "but the buildings of this city belong to me." This was to be a city preserved, not destroyed. Then, in an act that stunned all who watched, he performed a ritual of humility, reminding himself that all worldly power is temporary. He then faced the huddled masses. They expected a final brutal verdict. Instead, they were about to witness an act of statesmanship that would define the foundation of his new empire. "Have no fear," the Sultan announced. "From this day on, your lives and your liberties are secure. You are free to continue your lives, to keep your property, and to practice your religion without interference." This was not the promise of a conqueror, but the decree of a just ruler. For the people of Constantinople, it was a miracle. The feared apocalypse had turned into a proclamation of tolerance. As the Sultan departed, the Hagia Sophia was prepared for its new role. The call to prayer echoed beneath its dome, a sound that symbolized not the erasure of its past, but the beginning of Istanbul's future, a city where East and West, Islam and Christianity, would coexist and create a new history. Mehmed's vision for his new capital began immediately. His first priority was not to celebrate, but to rebuild and repopulate. He issued decrees that formed the bedrock of a multi-ethnic, multi-religious empire. He reinstated the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate, ensuring the city's largest community could govern its own religious affairs. He sent out a call across his empire and beyond, inviting anyone, Muslim, Christian, or Jew, to make Istanbul their home, promising them safety and opportunity. The city that had been emptied by fear and siege began to fill again with life. It was the start of a great transformation from the dying Constantinople to the vibrant cosmopolitan Istanbul, the future capital of the world. The conqueror was now the builder. On the ruins of the old, Sultan Mehmed began to raise a new city that reflected his grand vision. He commissioned the Fatih Mosque, not just a place of prayer, but a sprawling center of learning and social welfare, open to all. He filled his court with the greatest minds of both the East and the West, becoming a true Renaissance prince who patronized art and science regardless of origin. He laid the foundations for the Topkapi Palace and the Grand Bazaar, the political and economic engines that would drive his empire for centuries. Under his rule, Istanbul was not just reborn. It was consciously engineered to be the bridge between civilizations, a global center of power, culture, and commerce. The Conquest of Constantinople was the event that truly forged the Ottoman Empire. With this strategic capital secured, the empire grew to dominate 3 continents. The foundation of justice, tolerance, and intellectual curiosity, laid down by Mehmed the Conqueror, allowed for a golden age of art, architecture, and science to flourish. The city he built became a testament to his vision, a place where for centuries, different peoples lived and worked together, creating a unique and brilliant culture. The echoes of 1453 can be heard not in the clash of swords, but in the vibrant, enduring spirit of Istanbul today. Mehmed did more than conquer a city. He created the future. The fall of Constantinople was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new one. Under Sultan Mehmed's just and visionary rule, the dying city was reborn as Istanbul, a vibrant metropolis where cultures, faiths, and ideas could flourish. He was not just a conqueror, he was a builder of civilizations. The conquest did not extinguish a light, but rather it passed the torch of history. It marked the end of the old Roman world and cemented the foundation of a new global power that would shape the destiny of the East and West for centuries to come. The legacy of 1453 is not one of destruction, but of a remarkable transformation, driven by the unbreakable will, profound faith, and brilliant intellect of one man and his people.
Chronoscripts is your gateway to the forgotten, mysterious, and hidden corners of history.